When the world gets weird, it's time to join Jennifer Warren as she gets deep with deep tokes and deep thoughts with professional dreamers. Where political technobabble makes your weekly head change seem almost normal. Because when the weird turn pro and the dreamers turn surreal, say hello to Jennifer Warren.
Back behind the black and blue mic, Jennifer Warren here. So the question was asked, if I don't believe, then what rules of life do I live by? Well, I'll tell you, if your life isn't going how you want it to go, then the reason is probably that the person you are isn't capable of achieving your dreams. The solution is pretty simple. You change your skill set and the approach you're taking to become the person that you can be happy with and who can make your dreams come true. Now, it doesn't matter if you change your abilities and skills or not. You need to set a fire pit in your belly that's hot enough to drive those two engines of, well, I'll get to that in a second. There's two engines you need to get going and keep them going 24/7. You can never, ever, ever let that fire pit in your belly go out. Now, the first engine is the belief in yourself that says, screw what other people think. Now, that doesn't mean that you think you're the greatest at everything. It only means that you believe that you can be the greatest. If you are already the greatest, then it simply means that you can be better. So you have to keep that belief in yourself first. Now, the second engine is the never-ending drive that just says, just do it. Multitask. But have a clear focus on your goal. Never stop, never stopping. If you have obstacles in your life, like I do, deal with them. Recognize your limits and go after them like a prize fighter. They are the monsters that you have to fight every damn day. Now, with me, it's PTSD and panic disorder. And enough medical issues, I promise you, to fill a torpedo with enough meds to sink a battleship. Now, my issues tend to creep up on me on little cat feet. By an odd coincidence, so does my cat. How do you like that? Now, I'm not pissed at anybody. I just point out logical conclusions that I reached as a child. And I've seen nothing in my life to demonstrate that I've ever been wrong about my conclusions. Now, life isn't fair. We all know that. And if we want a better life, we have to work for it. So mumbling to an imaginary invention doesn't feed the kitty. Trust me on this, and they get pissed when they're not fed. So, obviously, concluding that people who think otherwise are deluded is part of the natural progression of my thought process. You don't have to be angry to point out facts. You only have to be rational. As for fairy tales that contain some factual information, let me tell you something. I once read a fairy tale that mentioned the sale of a cow. Now, cows exist. Does that mean that I should believe that magic beans exist as well? I don't think so. Are there giants? Yes, of course there are giants. It's a known medical condition, and it's very sad, too, because people who have it don't tend to live very long, or at least it's not as long as you and me do. Did you know that the largest creature to survive the Cambrian period was a small mammal that had as its only saving grace an opposable thumb? Evolution, my dears, is what made us what we are, and we're still evolving. In fact, human beings have reached the stage where we are approaching an age where we'll soon be able to be the only creatures in history to take control of our own evolution and direct it for the benefit of our species. Knowing this is part of the philosophy of transhumanism, which I happen to advocate. As for my personal life, no God tells me anything of any use, and I can't even find a historical record that points to a single invention that's been attributed to he or she or it or whatever, this character. I do, however, have a Google Home to remind me to take my medication. It also plays music on demand. I listen to a lot of Debussy, but, I like a little relaxing rhythm and blues or jazz on occasion, too. It also serves as a handy kitchen timer. It's a little pricey for a kitchen timer, but it works. So, I'll tell you all, believers, let me know when your God is able to perform the same services as a $50 toy, and we can talk. Until then, leave me the hell alone. I am not, and I repeat, am not interested in converting to any religion, especially not one where the God that runs the religion supposedly is interested in genocide or slavery. This is not a God that I want to have any dealings with. This is a God that should be hunted down like an animal and killed, if you can find him. A lot of people say that they have searched for him for a long time, and some claim to have found him. But I don't see them with any stuffed heads on their walls, so I gotta wonder about that. But let's get into politics, shall we? Politics and the latest and the greatest in the world of technology. Wow, boy, there's some really cool stuff that's come out this week, I can tell you. Let's see, in politics, the Republicans jumped up and said, we're going to get rid of Mr. Rubenstein so that we can put somebody in there that will get rid of this Mueller character because he's starting to find out too much. He knows too much. He must be gotten rid of. Yes. And if you can't get rid of them one way, then by Godfrey, fire his boss. And so they jumped up and they said, we're going to do it. And then the next day they went, maybe not such a great idea. You gotta laugh at these guys. I mean, seriously, and then Michael Cohen comes out and he releases this tape. Now on the tape, a lot of people talk about did Trump say that to pay in cash or not to pay in cash? That's not the issue. Well, let me tell you what the issue is. The issue is what he actually said and did. What he did on that tape was he had a conversation with his lawyer about whether or not to commit what's called civil fraud against another person. In other words, using his money through third parties in order to make her think that her story was going to be published just in order to kill it. That's civil fraud. It's not a criminal fraud. Criminal fraud is when you try to take somebody's money by lying to them. No, civil fraud is when you say you're giving them money for one reason and that's not the real reason. That's civil fraud. Now, the thing is no, you don't go to jail for civil fraud. But if you're discussing it with your lawyer, it has the same implications as criminal fraud because it's still fraud. What it means is that once you have that on tape, it means that you have discussed a criminal conspiracy, and once there's a evidence of a criminal conspiracy, the attorney-client privilege goes out the door. You don't have that anymore. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. You see, what's going on between Cohen and Trump and Mueller and the rest of them is a kind of a conversation. Trump says, Mueller can't do anything to me because there's no collusion. Okay? And then he says, Cohen can't do anything because he was once my lawyer. He's not anymore, but he was once my lawyer, so there's the attorney-client privilege. And Cohen comes back and says, with his tape, yes, I can, because you broke the law. Yes, Cohen broke the law too by discussing it, but the fact is that Cohen is saying There is no attorney-client privilege. And that's the name of that tune. So the next day, after this tape goes out on the air, a CNN reporter gets up and wants to ask a question about Donald Trump's relationship. Off with her head. He says, get out of here. Get this person out of here. We don't want this person allowed in this event. CNN is barred. Get them out. Well, that's Donald Trump saying, I'm upset. Okay, so you have to learn to translate all these things that he's doing in terms of a conversation. And the conversation is basically a conversation between a whining little bitch and the rest of the world. And that's what Trump is. A whiny little bitch. And the rest of the world, they are responding. They are responding big time. Trump goes to Putin and he says, "Oh, I love you. Let me suck your thingy." And Putin turns around and says, "Good little boy, Donald. Now run back and tell everybody how much you love Mother Russia," which, of course, Donald does. And the Republicans, they're like, "Oops, we really don't want to be associated with this clown." So they run like hell. 43 of them have decided they're not going to run at all, as a matter of fact. So, what do we got? We've got a clown that's been elected, and by Godfrey, we got ourselves a circus. What do you expect? Now, the Donald, he owes, well, roughly about $500 million to the Russian mob. I mean, the largest Russian oil company, which, by the way, has its entire board of directors answerable directly to Vladimir Putin. $500 million. Wow, the vig on that has to be something fierce. But there's a new book out called The Making of Trump, or I think it's either that or The Making of Donald Trump. I'll have to look it up. Somebody look it up and let me know. Anyway, in this book, it details all the crap that Donald has been doing with the Russians for the last 30 years. And the guy comes out and he says, you know, they have been grooming him for decades now. They have wanted him because this is a guy who is easily manipulated. This is a guy who you say, "Oh, you're not a good person," and he freaks, and you say he is a wonderful human being and he will do anything you ask. So this is a perfect puppet for the Russians. And that's why they loaned him upwards of $500 million from the Russian oil company that runs pretty much all of Russian oil. And they are answerable directly to Vladimir Putin. Dun, da, da, da. What did you expect? Yeah, $500 million. Wow, the vig on that has to be something fierce. You know, it comes, though, with tons of favors being required. You know? I mean, you don't, and if you do that for 30 years, borrowing money from what amounts to the Russian mob, you don't stay clean. What you do get, though, is you get the Russians ready to rig an election on your behalf. And people that go along with it, well, you know, you got to remember, when you elect a clown, you can expect a circus. Now, Republicans who are starting to realize anyway, what's going on, they are running from election like crazy. I mean, 43 of them have decided, well, you know, I want to spend more time with my family. That seems to be a very popular reason to give up on a career in politics. I think that was Paul Ryan's excuse too. And, you know, the truth is, none of these people want to answer for Russia's whore. They even got, you're going to love this one. You know, they even got this idea that they were going to get rid of Mueller by firing his boss. And the way they were going to fire his boss was to impeach him, which of course is the only legal way they could do it. So they filed all the official paperwork to